Welcome, everyone. If you would, please place yourself on mute for the time being. You're welcome to be on video with us if you would like, and we will get started in just about 1 minute. Thank you. All right, thank you. I think we'll get started. Welcome to CCRI's first virtual Pathdays for the fall 2020 semester. And we are here to meet the faculty from communication, media, and film. So right away, I'd like to turn it over and welcome Professor Beauchesne from communications.
Hi, everyone. I'm Professor Beauchesne. I'm director of the program. I'm also a faculty member who teaches communication courses. I've been doing that for 40 years or so at CCRI. Some of the courses I teach are actually some of my favorite courses are Mass Media Foundations, Communication Fundamentals, which is a relatively new course, and it surveys the communication discipline. And my absolute favorite course, but I don't think that many students feel the same way about it, is public speaking. It's so exciting to see how students develop over the course of a semester. And these courses are part of the 23 courses that we have in the program. And the program is relatively new. It basically started in 2019. And these courses are also part of the new media communication certificate, which we started in 2013. So the communication program is actually an outgrowth of that new media communication certificate that we started. The courses that I mentioned and the many of the other ones are offered as general education courses. So some of the students who take these courses are not necessarily in the program, but they are interested in them, and hopefully will be able to take these courses and also transfer. The public speaking course primarily is one of the courses that is required in most programs at CCRI. And recently, the Communication Fundamentals course is one that is also now required as an option in the business program. So for me, I've been involved in communication since high school, when I was part of a debate against Roger Williams University, and it was exciting for me because we high schoolers actually won. So that's kind of what got me started. And my interest over the years was compounded by social, political, and cultural events. So I began to see the power of communication and how important it is in our society. It really is what makes the world go round. And when it's done effectively, it makes the world go round smoothly. And what's going on today, I think, is an example of how things can get a little messed up with miscommunication. But overall, you know, communication allows us to share ourselves, our ideas, our interests, our goals, and it really, in essence, keeps us connected to each other. And so that's one of the reasons I've been involved, and I really think it is so important today. It's certainly important in education, and our goal is to keep you involved in communication and hopefully make you confident and develop the skills in communication, as well as the skills you needed in whatever career you choose. And I've had many successful students over the years. I think of two off the top of my head. One is Brianna. She actually wasn't in the program because we didn't have the program when she graduated, but she was in the general studies, joined the admissions agreement, and she went over to Rhode Island College. She did extremely well. She graduated with a degree in speech pathology, and she's planning on getting her certificate. And then when this pandemic dies down, she's going to pursue a master's degree in speech pathology. Another student I had, I am connected with in Facebook. She graduated also from Rhode Island College last year. She is currently, well, at the time she was just graduated, she was looking for a job, but she did a very competitive internship with a WGBH she did extremely well, and I think she represented CCRI. And these two students to me are my definition of successful. They didn't necessarily come to CCRI as A students. They didn't come as experts. They learned their coursework along the way, but they had the qualities that makes for any successful student. And one of them is being committed to an education, learning some time management skills so that they can balance their job, their social life, their friends, their family, and also they can produce quality work at the end of all that. And you know, what we ask of our students is, if you need help, just ask, because there's a lot of help available here. One of the students I mentioned needed to have extra time on all of her tests, and she worked with the disability office to get that set up with all of her instructors. So that's what it takes. It takes you're willing to be a student and to work at it. And we know it's not always easy, especially in this time of COVID, as I call it.
Thank you very much, Professor Beauchesne.
Okay.
That was a great overview. Thank you very much. And you're going to introduce our next.
Yes, I am. I'm going to introduce another professor who teaches similar courses to mine, and that's Professor Soucy.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a lot of fun for me to be here today because I'm seeing people and students. I do miss the classroom, but we're making it work with the virtual and the remote teaching. So I was teaching critical reading courses and writing courses, and then a few years ago, Kathy Beauchesne came to me and asked if I would teach some communication courses, and boy, I was happy, because it is just a wonderful field to work in, and it's a wonderful field to be teaching. I teach communication fundamentals. I also teach interpersonal communication, which is kind of my baby. It's kind of my favorite right now. Interpersonal comm is, you know, one person talking to one person. And so when you're a student in that class, you get to think an awful lot about yourself, which we all, let's face it, we all really like to do. So it's a fascinating course where we talk about, you know, conflict resolution and culture and gender. And honestly, I always tell students that if you come into that class and really want to become a better communicator, I promise that it'll happen and your relationships will be better for it. I also teach media writing, which is really a journalism writing class, which I have a blast with because I used to be a reporter. So I've finally been able to take some interests from my past and bring them back and work in those fields in new ways, and it's been a lot of fun. I teach public speaking, which I really enjoy. And in the spring, I'm hoping a new course we've developed will run, and that is the Fundamentals of American Journalism. It's interesting. Journalists don't have a code. They don't have like an organization that they belong to where they have to adopt certain rules. And that's because journalists want to be independent, and they don't want to have have others tell them what to do. We, you know, so firmly believe in freedom of speech, but there's a whole variety of ethics conversations that we have to have about journalism. And so we'll be talking about that in that class, as well as, you know, what is fake news? What is a journalist? And what do they do? And you don't have to be a journalism major to appreciate the importance of journalism today. I think that being told that you're the enemy of the people as a journalist is heartbreaking. And so we all need to work at making that better for all journalists. So this is one way we can do it, I think, by having these really important conversations at CCRI. I can beat Kathy when it comes to my start in communications. I wrote, and I have it, and I'll find it, Kathy, and show you. I wrote a newspaper when I was in 2nd grade, and it's stapled and it has headlines, and I drew the pictures. But I have always loved communication and writing. I was a newspaper reporter for The Call. I did independent work for the Providence Journal. I was an editor of a newspaper. And but I love teaching, so I had to kind of give that up for a while. So I get to bring all these various interests together now in working in the field of communication at CCRI. But I'd rather talk about students than me, so let me move on. So students that I have had that have gotten the most out of my classes have been the students who come in really curious. Like they are curious about everything. And I always say, you know, if you want to be a journalist, for instance, there's nothing better than being a nosy person. You know, it's a license to be nosy, to ask questions, to dive deep, to figure things out, and to tell stories. Now, I don't tell stories. My students don't tell stories in the way that John Dorn does, or Sandy with cameras or radio, but we do it with words. And it's really the students who come in and have stories to tell do the best, and the students who are curious. I've had some students who clearly communication resonated with them, and they would talk to me after class and they'd tell me about things that they read. I had a student last year who I kept saying to her, you need to be a comm major. I don't know, you know, we talk about these, we have these wonderful conversations. No, she was going to go into business because it made more sense to her. She could get a better job, she thought. I just did one of my first references. I wrote a letter of recommendation for a student, this girl who is now going into the master's program, an accelerated master's program at URI. She went to URI and enjoyed the business classes, but realized that she could blend those. She could blend her communication skills with her business. And so I'm excited for her. I also had a student last year who came from a really working class neighborhood, worked really hard, helped with his siblings, was scared to death of like an honors project. And we talked about it, and he ended up doing this fabulous bit of research around Facebook, social media, and political leanings. And it was really good. He worked so hard on it, but he also realized that he could be a scholar in the communication field. And so now he's at URI as well. So I think that if you want to be a good student in the communication program, who does well? It's the students who come in that really just are sponges for what's going on in the world today and what's happening in the news. I also have sports writers. I get a lot of sports writers, and they don't really want to take media writing. And then they find out that things happen in the news that make sports, you know, Kaepernick, you know, we talk about some of the things that are happening today with Black Lives Matters, and it is COVID with sports teams. And suddenly sports writers are writing news, not just sports. And I think that's helped students understand the importance of journalism writing. So after the end, we'll see if anybody has any questions, but I think who are we moving on to next?
We are going to move on to Professor Sandy Sneesby, who helped co-found the communication program and also got us going with the new media communication certificate. So Sandy, take it away.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you and Holly for sharing your experience. It's exciting to see all of the students here. Although I can't see you, if you're willing to put your camera on, I know we would love to see you. So thank you for taking the time to come to visit with us today. We're excited to have you here. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I think my love of film and media can be traced back to a little girl. I would go on Saturday mornings down to the local movie theater. We used to have them in every town back in the day. And I would steal away down with my friend Mary to see a movie every Saturday afternoon. And just experiencing a film in a dark, large room on a magnificent screen surrounded by the sound was just a pivotal moment for me. I love to be just surrounded and immersed in a film. And it was then that my interest really started. And so through the years, when I went to college, excuse me, I studied film. In fact, here's one of my original films. It was actually film. You can see it. So that's how we used to make films back in the day, 8mm. Today, that would be put on a chip like this, right? An SD card. But so things have come a long way in terms of technology, but the field is the same. It's all about storytelling, and that's you know, that's really what film media, all types of media is all about. It's telling a story, fashioning a story, and connecting with your audience. So in, written or oral, like Kathy and Holly specialize, or through a visual and auditory means media like Norm, John, and I specialize, which would be the film aspect. So I went to school for film. I ended up getting my master's in fine arts from Emerson College in Boston to focus more on film. And since I've been at the college, I've been working with originally with Norm, and then I met Kathy, and we began to build courses and a program, first a concentration, then a program in communications and media. And we were very excited to bring that to fruition last fall when our first class of our associate's degree began. So you're really here at an exciting time for the college and our program. We were in the very beginnings of it. This would be our second year, so our second cohort of students. So you're here at a wonderful, wonderful time. And so we're very, very happy to have you. And we'll be sure to help you through your journey. At any time, reach out to any one of us, and we can advise you on courses or help you navigate CCRI, whatever that may entail. The courses in the program that I have, I've taught our video and audio production course, which is a foundational course in our program. We teach you sort of soup to nuts, all about how to use a camera, use microphones, lighting, etc., and how to tell a story. And we have additional courses, more advanced intermediate courses in editing, which I also teach. And then I teach a historical film studies courses, History of Film 1 and History of Film 2, where we look at the history of the medium and how it started and how it's progressed through the years. So it's a historical film studies course. I'm also in the spring going to be teaching an internship course. So those of you in our program who enroll in our program, in your final semester, you will complete a portfolio. So you can show all the work that you've created in our program, and then you will internship at a company to hone your skills. So before you leave, you're going to have your education here in the courses, your skills that are going to get built, and then you're also going to leave with a portfolio and leave with some internship experience. We also have some experiential learning opportunities for you by means of the CCRI radio station. We have a channel that we're starting, and also an annual film festival. So I encourage you to get involved. Oh, and I'm sorry, we have a newspaper. So I encourage you to get involved in any and all of those. You can serve as a DJ, write for the newspaper, work on organizing our channel, organizing our film festival. There's lots of things for you to do, and those are great resume building.
Unfortunately, I think we may have lost Professor Sneesby. So we will go on. Who would like to go next?
I believe that we're going to have my colleague, Professor John Dorn, share.
All right, thank you. Like Professor Sneesby, I also teach the media production and film production courses. And so I teach the foundations of video and audio production, like Sandy does, as well as Professor Grant. But I also teach sound design and production, motion graphics, TV studio production. I have taught media, video and media editing in the past. And then I also teach a couple comm courses, mass media foundations, and careers in communication and film. So if some of you are in your first semester here, I might have you in the careers and comm and film course. I see a couple of people from my sound design class here right now. So basically I'm along with Sandy and Norm, I teach within the media and film production section of the comm and film media program. And, you know, as far as what drew me to this field, it really kind of goes back very early. I've always, like Sandy, always loved movies, but always loved telling stories. You know, as early as I can remember, I was drawing cartoons and comic strips. And I still do that as part of my work. But then, you know, later on in elementary school, as far back as elementary school, I was making little fake radio shows with my friends on a tape recorder. And in middle school, I rigged up 2 VCRs and a video camera to make like a makeshift video editor, so I could add music and cut shots and stuff like that. And that kind of all just continued through high school, where I made movies, like goofy movies with my friends for extra credit in classes. And that went through college. I ended up going to Emerson College for grad school. I was in the same program as Sandy Sneesby. And you know, that kind of really solidified my studies in filmmaking and directing and cinematography and editing, and basically just kind of as a sort of filmmaking generalist. And so along with teaching, I also have a small video production company where I do music videos, short films, and some commercial work. So as far as, you know, what makes a successful student in my courses, and I can think of, you know, a bunch of examples of students who, you know, were willing. I always tell this to my classes, that you have to be willing to take creative risks. That's something that plays a big role in developing your creative voice. So I have a couple students just from this past year, Marcos, Olivia, Madison, who are all now at Emerson College in the film program there. And they were, you know, really willing to take creative risks, experiment with the media. You know, they learn from mistakes they made, or you know, less successful parts of their work, and responded well to constructive criticism. And I know specifically one of the students, Marcos, was working on a short film outside of class, just completely independent from school, and I was kind of advising him on that and giving him feedback. And that's a great thing to do, is just outside of class, make things. The best thing you can do to keep improving is to keep making things, is what I would say. So I think that's about it for me.
Thank you, John. It's great to hear about those students that you mentioned, because I also had them in class.
Right. Yep.
And they were super.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so glad to know where they ended. And Emerson's a great college, so perfect. Okay, finally, I'd like to introduce a longtime colleague. We first met in the 80s, I believe it was, back in the shoulder pad era, right?
Yeah, I think I spoke out like that.
And so this is Professor Norm Grant.
Hi, I'm Norm Grant, and I also teach the foundations of video and audio production here. I teach the documentary production class as well, which is really my favorite. And in the spring, I'll be teaching a new class, multimedia journalism. So I look forward to teaching that as well. I guess I got started a long time ago when I was just a kid, not with moving pictures or motion pictures, but still pictures, and actually with film. I remember being in my bedroom closet with all the lights out as I put film into a tank, into the developer. Most of those pictures were shot with this camera. my dad's old Kodak. And years later, I worked for about 8 years as a photojournalist at the Call, actually, Holly, and worked there full time for about 8 years, where I think the biggest challenge was learning to tell a story in one single frame of film. And I think that really helped me a lot in terms of framing images, in terms of composing your images in the frame when I eventually got to producing video. Eventually, I wound up at CCRI. At that time, we were doing some video, but not an awful lot. And I started to get involved with that a little bit. And as time passed, I got more involved. And as video grew, both here at CCRI and in the rest of the world, fortunately, I was able to grow with it as well, and became sort of the college videographer at some point. And for about the last 10 years, I was working in the marketing and communications department as the videographer, a job that I retired from back in June. But over the last 15 years or so, I've been involved in making a documentary about New England's first interracial nightclub with a friend of mine, Tom Shaker. Tom and I have also produced numerous shorts of jazz and R&B musicians from the New England area that are being used by the Worcester Polytech Institute Jazz Database, as well as the Ryle Music Hall of Fame. I've done various freelance gigs along the way, mostly videos, some photography. The other thing that I got started with about 14 to 15 years ago here at CCRI was teaching. Before we had a comm program, we did have a couple of basic video courses. Me and another professor, Gene Grandy, taught those. And, you know, when I walk into a classroom, that first day of class with students, what I always enjoy, of course, in days of COVID, we're doing this virtually, but I always enjoy going around the room as we introduce ourselves and looking for those students that seem to have that need to express themselves. But also I like looking at the students that they seem to have that need, but they're a little hesitant and maybe just haven't found their voice just yet. And, you know, we all find different ways to communicate. Some with speech, some with writing, some with music, painting, and some with filmmaking. And seeing those students who haven't quite gotten their voice yet, you know, shoot and edit their first film and suddenly realize that they have, I think is one of the great joys of doing this, and is probably why I still do it. And I think, you know, whenever we watch a film, whether it's fictional or documentary, I think what we learn hopefully is something from the story that's being told, but also we're learning something about the filmmaker. We're learning something about their beliefs, about their feelings, about their outlook on the world, and also about their values. And what I like seeing is young filmmakers starting to do films that reflect all of those things from themselves. So, and also I love being able to write a recommendation to a student when they're moving on to a school such as Emerson or some other film school, knowing that they've made good use of their time here and they're going on to a career in film or media.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for sharing your experiences at CCRI and your background as well. We have just a few moments left for some questions if anyone has any. You're welcome to take yourself off mute, or you can type them in the chat.
So I didn't have any questions, but it was very nice to hear your guys' stories, seeing as I'm at a point where I'm not really sure what I'm doing. You know, it's good to hear, I think.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for coming and thank the professors for sharing, and thank you students for joining us today. If you would like to know more about the specific pathways and specific courses in communication, media, and film, you can visit ccri.edu/pathways and select the communication, media, and film link, and you'll learn all about the courses and offerings in that area, and you'll have the chance to connect with these faculty and others in the area. I'd also like to ask you to join us at the virtual job fair hosted on Handshake Thursday, November 12th, 2020 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you can find more information about Handshake in the on-demand library associated with Pathdays. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and everyone have a nice day.
You all also.